Welcome, folks, to the 11th episode of No Conference for Old Men, podcast where three old guys are talking Houston Cougars basketball with a bit of Big 12 coverage added in as well. And proud members of GoCoogs.com network, the group that provides the deepest and broadest coverage of Houston Cougars content around. Conference play has begun, gentlemen, and it was the tale of two games in our first two out against conference opponents. We pummeled West Virginia 89-55 at home in our conference opener, giving Cougar fans around the opportunity to puff out their chests with great pride to kick things off. But being part of No Conference for Old Men in the Big 12, reality comes quick as we travel to Ames, Iowa 3 days later in the middle of a bitter, cold snowstorm for a tough, close loss, 57-53 to the Cyclones in a game we almost pulled out. We're also at the point in the season where, from an advanced analytics perspective, I will begin to use our current season's statistics as our baseline to measure our play versus using last season's stats as I've been doing up to this point. So today we are all here again with Tom Lediak, former coach, Bill Walker, former player, and myself, Steve Chang, analytics guy, for this week's episode. And we'll start off with our summary of the initial two conference games played by our Houston Cougars. Each highlight some key Big 12 games we watched as well, then move into a deep preview of the TCU and Tech games coming up this week, and finally highlight some other Big 12 games each of us will be paying attention to as well. Okay, let's get right into it. Lots to cover this week as we kicked off conference play. In recapping the two games played, let's start with the West Virginia game. So, Tom, what are your coach's thoughts on our 89-55 win over West Virginia?
It was a blitzkrieg, Bill and Steve. You know, we came out, and it's like West Virginia had never seen, this type of defense before. You know, at one point we had a 68-29 lead. I wouldn't say West Virginia wasn't prepared. I know they're trying to mix in a lot of new players. Kirk Kriisa was just coming back. He had not been back very long, but it looked like they were totally unprepared mentally against our defense. West Virginia didn't look connected at all. They kind of looked like a team, that just assembled and, hey, we're going to do this and let's go see if it works. But it was tough to see an identity that West Virginia had, tough to see any type of role definition or cohesiveness on offense or defense. It doesn't help when you're trying, Coach Eilert doesn't help when you have all these new players and you're trying to figure it out against our defense. That was not a good recipe for West Virginia. A few notes here. I actually thought when we played Texas State and A&M Corpus Christi that they played tougher D than West Virginia did. Even though we beat Texas State pretty good and A&M Corpus Christi pretty good, they put up a battle. I just didn't think West Virginia hardly put up any fight. I did like to see Javier slam the ball. It was kind of the first time we see him this year when he got the ball in there and he had a chance to just go up and slam it. He did. That was good news. We're up 48-22 at half. Like I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, we got up 68-29. From then on, it was, I wouldn't say it's garbage time because there's no garbage time in a great program, but it's kind of hard to sustain, when you're up by that many points at the rest of the way. A couple more notes I had here. At 6:30 in the first half, West Virginia goes to a 2-3 zone. And I heard Coach Sampson on the radio the other day mention that they had done a lot of prep for the 2-3 zone. I went ahead here and I charted it. We scored on the first 7 possessions when West Virginia went to a zone. We were 7 for 7, 10 total possessions. So we scored on 8 out of 10 possessions. So very good job against their 2-3. Great job on Raquan Battle. Just forced him into some really hideous shot.
Yeah.
He did. I think he ended up with like 4 points. One was a slam at the end of the game on a breakaway.
Yeah, and he gave a really good job on that dunk. He gave a stare down after that dunk. And it was like really?
Dude,
you've only had? Yeah.
Dude, scoreboard, man. Yeah. Scoreboard. Did a great job on Noah Farrakhan. Matter of fact, he was introduced to the nation of defense.
Yeah.
And then I had a note here. It might be, worth looking into as the season goes on, but I thought West Virginia was a lot better without Kirk Kriisa in the game and Slazinski in the game. And I know the game was no longer in doubt, and sometimes those things are different. Once you get like a 40-point lead, you might psychologically, you might just not play as tough D or whatever. But toward the end of the game, without creasing Selazinski, a lot better. So, going forward, there might be something to see how Coach Eiler deals with that situation.
Cool. How about you, Bill? What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought, and it's a little difficult because West Virginia, at least right now, I think they will be good as they go forward. I think when they get Jesse Edwards back, their big guy, I think they're going to be competitive. But this game was not. Start out with the defense as always. I mean, it was just tremendous. Sharp and Dunn. Emmanuel started on Battle. Dunn played him as well. They were all over him. I mean, he shot 1 of 9 from the field. This is a guy that was scoring almost around 28 a game coming into our game. Granted, over 3 games once he got his eligibility. But this guy averages about a half an assist a game. He does not pass the ball. He takes a ton of shots. We held him to only 9 shots, and he did have some fun. But 3 points for the game. And we held them overall to 32%, and we held their starters to 29%. The defense was, as you said, it was. I'd mentioned that I thought this game would revert a little bit back to the norm in turning them over. And, with good ball handlers, with Krisa, Farrakhan, Slazinski, who plays on the perimeter and passes. They only committed 12 turnovers for the game, 5 in the first half. So, like I said, it reverted a little bit back toward the norm. And I think that's going to be more the case as we get into Big 12 play and we play against better balls.
Yep.
We out-rebounded them by 6. I just thought played well, basically at both ends. But I definitely like to highlight defense because we don't talk about it as much. I thought we were unbelievably good offensively. And this plays into what you were regarding how just mediocre defensively. They played primarily man, as you mentioned. They did play some 2-3, and it just didn't. We took them apart. Cryer was his usual self. Francis, as you mentioned, he went right up with the ball. There was no hesitating. He went up, he dunked the ball, which is what he needs to be all the time. Dunn shot the ball well when he wasn't forcing the issue as much, and he was getting passes behind the arc off of Shedd's penetration. Shot the ball well. Tugler played an aggressive game. He had the play of the game by far, but he had that tomahawk dunk off the pass from Shedd, which was awesome. I'm not expecting this to occur all that often, but we shot 53% from the field, 9 of 18 from behind the arc, which was unreal, 12 of 14 from. We just absolutely dominated them at both ends. The one guy I didn't mention was Sharp in terms of the offense. He only shot the ball 4 times. He hit 3, but he led us with 7 boards. Yep. And once again, he was in Battle's face the entire time.
Incredible D, yeah.
And Eilert actually referred to us afterwards. And if you recall, the last time I said that Eilert fully expected them to finish in the top half of the Big 12. And once again, I'll say what I said the first time. Good luck.
Yeah, completely agree. The starters were Shedd, Cryer, Sharp, Roberts, and Francis again. As you guys said, team was zeroed in, and we started fast and never looked back. Though Cryer was statistically the MVP of the game from an advanced analytics perspective with Ken Palm, I wanted to highlight 2 guys that really upped their game in our first conference game, and that was Javier Francis and Damian Dunn. Both were focused, not overwhelmed by the stage of Big 12 play, and the light just seemed to go on for both of these guys, continuing their great play from the previous game versus Penn. Cryer and Shedd were statistically the stars. Cryer had 20 points, 4 of 7 from three-point range, and a plus 19.3 player box score plus minus when on the court. Shedd had 8 points, 11 assists, only 1 turnover, and was a plus 20.3 player box score plus minus. But Francis was also a plus 10.8, and Dunn was a plus 12.3. Just fantastic contributions from both. Now, from an advanced analytics perspective on offense, our effective field goal percentage, as you both highlighted, was off the charts good at 60.2% versus 50.8% for the season. And we protected the ball extremely well. with a 7.7% turnover percentage versus our norm of 14.8 for the season. And we offensive rebounded a little bit below standard at 27.5% versus our norm of 41.4% this season. But that was because there were so few offensive rebounds to be had in this game, given how well we were shooting. So offensively, you're right. I think this is, based on the opponent and our statistics, best offensive game of the season. Now on D, we played at a stellar level all game long, limiting West Virginia to 35.7% effective field goal percentage. And that's well beyond our standard. Forced them to 18.6 turnover percentage, which is below our standard, but probably what we should expect to see, as you highlighted as well, Bill, given we're now into Big 12 play. We limited their three-point percentage to an anemic 17.4%, and that's even lower than what we've been allowing all season long at 26.1%. And we're the third best three-point defensive team in the country. And we blocked a staggering 27.3% of their two-point shots versus our standard during the course of this year at 20%. So as much as people were claiming we padded our stats in pre-conference, feasting on weak teams, we exceeded almost every defensive stat from our number one ranked defense in our initial Big 12 game. Just incredible stuff. Okay, so now after that high, then we had the game at ISU, which we didn't get the chance to preview. This was our first Big 12 road game this season, and boy, was it a physical grinder of a game. Bill, why don't you kick us off and tell us what your thoughts were on our first loss of the season, 57-53 at Iowa State?
Yeah, I'll talk a little less about this one because I was on my feet from I sat during the 14-0 start, and Sharp hit the first three, and I got up on my feet, and I'd never sat again other than for at halftime. After the game, I was planning to do a little prep work for tonight, and I was just, pardon the language, I was so pissed off. Screw basketball for the rest of the night. I'm done. Give Iowa State credit. They played well. They played great defensively. They hit shots early, and their freshman, who, by the way, is from just west of Milwaukee, from Pewaukee, if you're a Texan, where J.J. Watt hit what could almost be considered a miracle shot. I mean, he's a great shooter, but God, that was
two guys on him too.
Yeah, exactly. Turned out of the double team and shot it up. And Tom, you certainly would know this. It's tough as hell. The positives from the game, Sharp, from the minute the game started or very early on, Sharp did not seem to be the least bit intimidated by the atmosphere on the road, at Hilton. He was ready to go from the beginning. He played a really solid game. He shot well. He saved us in the first half. He was great. And then Shed, who had as poor a half as I've seen him play, he came out in the second half, and he was not going to let us lose. He played out of his mind in the second half. He blocked shots. He created turnovers. He hit shots. He was unbelievable in the second half. We shot, I think, exactly the same as they did. I think both teams shot 38%. The threes were similar. In the end, the difference was they were 18 of 22 from the line. We were 8 of 12 from the line. As much as that kind of irritates me when there's a big discrepancy, we do foul more, and so you have to expect that. We're so aggressive defensively, especially when we double and going up to block shots. And of course, we're playing on the road in the Big 12. So it's something that you almost kind of have to expect and be prepared. We averaged 9 turnovers on the season. We had 11 in the first half, 21 points scored in the first half. It looked to me like the team was just lost and there was no offense. And by that, I don't mean scoring, even though there was no scoring, 21 points, but it looked like we just abandoned running anything. And Cryer, Shed, we're putting the ball on the floor and trying to force their way to the basket, and we turned the ball over. We didn't score at all inside. We didn't go inside at all, and it was tough. Even Sharp, who was hitting his shots, they weren't particularly coming out of the offense. He dribble forward, dribble, backward dribble, create a little space and put up the shot. And fortunately, he was hitting them. I mean, we had eight assists for the entire game.
Yeah.
A couple more players to mention since I'm on the negatives right now. I think Dunn was completely overwhelmed by he just looked lost, which was a little bit frustrating, actually a lot frustrating. And then our one player who's won a national championship and has played in these games, Cryer, he just kind of didn't show up. And, that if he shoots the ball well, if he just comes to play, I think we win the game. With that said, I had mentioned last time that we're going to lose some games and you can't think the sky's falling and we're going to die. I mean, this is actually, as poorly as we played in the first half, I think this is a great game to learn from. I think Calvin will have a lot to work with these guys on. And, we're a smart team. We play well. We respond well to Calvin's coaching. I think this will be a positive run, I hope. And we'll bounce back.
Yeah, agreed.
So I want to at least leave it on a somewhat positive.
Yeah. How about you, Tom?
Oh, boy. I got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, you were actually at the game, right?
I was actually at the game. Made the trek down there through the conditions, road conditions. I'm so glad I made it. My nephew is a senior at Iowa State, so went to the game with him, and he was telling me all about the Iowa State players and all that. So I got a little scouting report on him and stayed over his apartment overnight, so I didn't have to drive back. But, from the get-go, it was almost like we were shocked at somebody coming after us. Like, we come after them. I'm not sure what the deal was. We thought we just want to come in and, hey, we're number 2 in the country. We're undefeated. And it's almost like we got sucker punched and took us a while to recover. We held them to 57 points, and you take away a couple of breakaway layups due to our offense. We hold them to the low 50s. So, defensively, it was there, but our offensive ineptitude wasn't enough to carry us. Tough road atmosphere. And it could have been, the road atmosphere could have been worse. Iowa State students aren't in session yet, so they have 2 sections for them behind the backboard, and it goes all the way up to the upper deck. So normally I'd say that's probably 2,500 to 3,000 students, at the game. And so those tickets went to the general public. So I'd say there was only about 60% capacity last night. Could have been even a rougher road environment. But first couple of possessions, we couldn't even run a dribble handoff with our big guys. Iowa State just blew it up one time, went off Shedd's knee, I think it was, and ended up being a transition bucket on the other end. I don't know if, how we do our dribble handoffs, if the big man is supposed to dribble at him and kind of set a screen, but we just allowed the defender to get in between our big man on the dribble handoff and our offensive player. And, the second time we ran one, Sharp almost traveled. Iowa State, I haven't watched the whole game. I'm going to go back and I'm going to rewatch the whole game, but I know Iowa State, they might vary their coverages on the pick and roll, but they started off in what's called drop coverage, where on the pick and roll, if you're guarding the big man, he drops down kind of into the paint. And if you're guarding the ball, you go over the top and you apply pressure to the back. And we just didn't handle that very well. There's 3, 4, 5 different ways you're going to attack that drop coverage, and none of them really worked. Our bigs, they're not really good short rolling. You could short roll them and get the ball to them kind of in the middle of the floor and then have them make a play. But that's just not the type of offensive players, we have as far as our bigs go. We recruit bigs first to play defense, pick and roll defense and rebound. A lot of times it comes up to matchups and just the way other teams play. And maybe this was just not a good matchup for us, just the way Iowa State played. But I thought we were just like shocked and surprised several times. We were kind of dribbling aimlessly and they came over and they trapped us.
Yeah.
And we had basically 3, 4 guys just kind of standing around, and that's what we do to teams.
Yep.
Hats off to Iowa State. You got to give credit to them too, but I don't think we played like we normally do. LJ now is 0-4 at Hilton, my nephew tells me. He was 0-3 as a Baylor Bear and 0-1 as a Houston Cougar at the Hilton Coliseum. Last shot by LJ. Some people are saying maybe Sharp, Shedd should have had the last chance on on that shot, but I don't know if he was supposed to do it, but I don't know if Juwan was supposed to screen LJ's man, but he didn't screen him. And maybe if Juwan screens LJ's man, he doesn't have to rush his shot as much. I reran that play about 10 times, and my guess is that Juwan is supposed to screen LJ's man, and he just ran right by him, and nobody screened LJ's man. LJ, I thought he kind of had to rush the shot. But it is what it is. Tough loss for the Cougs. Got to give Iowa State credit. I watched a little bit of their Oklahoma game, and it was tough for me to see how good both teams are. But now we know.
Yep. Yeah.
And by the way, they're the number 4 defensive. I mean, we're now prepared in case we go up against them again, say in the Big 12 tournament, but we're not going to face something that aggressive again.
Agreed.
You know what?
Not against a team like Kansas.
Yeah. Sorry to butt in, but there were some things that happened in the game that maybe don't happen in a normal game. Second half, I can't remember what the situation was, but there was a loose ball I thought we were going to come up with, and Lipsy came up with it and hit a tough shot with a guy in his face, kind of at the elbow. Rob Jones, their big guy, flip a coin on free throws. He's like a 55% shooter.
Hit them all.
He makes all 4 of his foul shots. Somebody said Iowa State fans were joking that he got hit hard on that and hit his head, and he forgot how to miss free throws. Trey King in the second half, he hit a big 3, and that might have been his first made 3 of the year.
Yeah, that was a killer.
Then of course the shot by Momsilova. I can't pronounce his name. It's just I don't know. I got another name for him I can't say on this show, but Momsilovic.
Yeah.
We had Shed on him, and they threw it into him, and then Roberts comes over to the double team, and he just turns away from Roberts and hits that tough shot.
So. Yes. So what could you do, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
but they give Iowa State credit. They held serve on their home court. It's a tough pill to swallow. Ryan said Coach Sampson looked kind of bummed at the press conference, and it's on to the next.
Yep.
You can't sit and dwell on individual plays in a game. Players are taught that when you make a mistake, it's over. You got like 0.001 seconds to get it out of your head. The same with this game here. We got TCU with a sellout crowd on Saturday coming up.
Yeah, I mean, for this one, no surprise around the nature of the game. It was a slow, grinding, defense-first style for both teams, and they were motivated after losing to OU in a close one in their conference opener. Then they come back and find out they were the underdogs at home in the next game versus us, so the motivation was there. Starters remained the same for us: Shed, Cryer, Sharp, Roberts, and Francis. I will note, though, to start the second half, surprisingly to me, Tugler started, in front of Francis, which I wasn't sure because, as I'm going to get to, I thought Francis played a great game, right? Especially given the stage and the opponent. We started super slow, as we all know, going down 14-0 to start off the game with 4 turnovers in the process of doing so. We appeared to be shell-shocked, quite honestly, turning the ball over throughout the first half and just appearing flustered. Dug such a deep hole to kick things off that it just became a slow slog trying to chip away at the lead the rest of the game. If you break the game into quartiles like Ken Palm does, first quartile killed us. We steadied the ship in the second quartile of the game, caught up in the third quartile, and just made some key mistakes and misses at the end to lose a close one. Emmanuel Sharp, I would say, was by far our top player of the game, and I thought he had an exceptional game. He was a plus 16.9 player box score plus minus for the game, and was the primary player that kept us within reach throughout the game. Though Shed contributed a key 14 points and was a plus 6 player box score plus minus, he also contributed 5 turnovers, and his running mate Cryer only had 5 points and was a minus 5.4 player box score plus minus. Dunn, as we've highlighted, wilted a bit under the constant pressure of Iowa State. He was a negative 15.2. But the kid I will highlight really coming through playing well for us, beyond sharp was Javier Francis, with some inspired play, 3 games in a row now for him, and he came in at a plus 8.7 in a tough physical game. As you dig into the advanced analytics from Ken Palm, on offense, ISU stifled us and doing to us what we've been doing to others. Our effective field goal percentage was an abysmal 45% versus our norm of 50.8% for the year. We did not protect the ball well, with a turnover percentage at 26.4% when our norm is just under 15%. And we offensive rebounded a little bit below standard at 32.4%. And to top it off, we shot 26.4% from 3, well below our 35% norm. But you know what, guys? On D, we played another stellar game. I mean, we limited ISU to 41.5% effective field goal percentage, which was to our number 1 ranked standard this year, right? We limited 3-point percentage to 20%, which is even below our number 1 ranked 26.1% rate this season. We forced them to a pretty good 19.2% turnover rate. We blocked 15.6% of their 2-point shots, which maybe not to our standard, but would still be ranked number 10 in the nation this season. So basically, we played to our number 1 defensive standard and then some. But at the end, it was the turnovers and missing a few point-blank shots towards the end that really did us in. So a tough loss for our Cougars, but some really positive play in one of the toughest environments around from Emmanuel Sharp and Javier Francis. I'm still feeling really good about how the kids are playing in general and believe we'll learn from the tough D that we faced and will adjust. But tough upcoming games at TCU next and hosting Texas Tech this coming week. So for week 1, I guess before we start previewing our upcoming games, what other game did each of you watch in Big 12 play? And what were some of the key takeaways?
I'm going to interject here real tough, but with 9:47 left in the game, UCF is beating Kansas 52-47.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Big 12, right?
Kansas probably pull it out, but
with some of their usual calls that they get, right?
Oh yeah. They'll call out their calling card, But anyway, I'll go first on this one. Are we talking about the game we watched, or
the game you watched in Big 12 play?
I watched the first half of Iowa State Oklahoma's game, and now that we've played Iowa State, I'm going to go back and watch that game a little carefully. I want to see how OU attacked ISU's drop coverage, because OU scored 71 points on Iowa State. So I'm going to go back and take a little bit better look at that one and just see how OU attacked it and see where they hurt Iowa State and see what Coach Sampson does the next time we play Iowa State. But I was watching that game, and it was so early in the season, it was kind of hard to see what each team has and how good they are. Well, now we know how good Iowa State is. OU is on the road tonight. They're playing, I believe it's TCU. So let's see how they can play on the road. Yep. But that was my summarization of the game I watched.
Okay. How about you, Bill? Which game did you watch?
Well, I watched it toward the end because it was somewhat coincided with TCU Kansas, questionable Kansas win. With TCU's up 81-79. TCU's center, Ernest Uda, he's the transfer from Kansas, gets a rebound with under a minute left. Hunter Dickinson's kind of battling for it as well, and gets a completely incidental, non-intentional hand to the face, and he just crumbles to the court, writhing in pain. If he doesn't fall, the game is not stopped. It's a 5-on-4 for TCU, up 2 points. Instead, the officials stop play. They go to the monitor at Fog Allen, by the way.
Yep.
And a flagrant one is called, and Dickinson hits the 2 free throws. They get the ball back. They work the ball down to 3.5 seconds left. 3.4 seconds was when Dickinson hit the shot. But if you watch it, it looked semi-obvious that he kind of shuffled his feet before putting up the winning basket. And is there a call at Fog Allen? Of course not. So TCU ends up losing the game 83-81. TCU, from what I watched, second half and then saw the box score, and we were paying attention to the score during the way. They played well, they shot well, which is sort of their trademark this year. They're not very good inside. Dickinson scored 30. McCullough and Adams scored 18. McCullough scored 16. That's really been what Kansas has done all year. They've got three players who kind of carry them in scoring. They don't have much more in terms of contributions, and I think that's going to come back to haunt them. The other thing is they are just not, and Tom, you've alluded to this before, Kansas is soft. They've got big players, but they are soft. They're not defending well, and I'm actually looking forward when we play them. TCU was led by a player who I think he may have transferred in from A&M Corpus Christi, Travion Tennyson. He 6'8" 3-pointers, 24 points. He's a guy that Jamie Dixon, the TCU coach, likes a lot. Miller there, who we'll talk about, their best player was. TCU is almost not quite, but kind of a polar opposite of Iowa State. So it'll be an interesting game on Sunday, surely.
Yeah. Okay. And for me, I zeroed in on the Texas Tech game. And Bill, as you know, we have that standing bet on whether Tech or BYU will end the season higher in the standings.
Yeah.
With me picking Tech, I will say, hadn't been feeling great about my choice lately, but conference play allows hope to be renewed. Tech won their first two conference games while BYU lost both of theirs, so I'm pretty happy about my pick again at this point. But kind of on to the Texas game that I watched. Texas started fast and ran out to a 17-10 lead. Then the wheels came off with Toussaint scoring at will against Asmus, who was playing soft D, and tag team with Pop Isaacs to help the Red Raiders take a 37-33 lead at the half. Then it was pretty close the rest of the way, with Tech pulling away on the road in the fourth quarter of the game. Though Joe Toussaint played a major role in that stretch that got them back into the game, the key players for Tech were Pop Isaacs and Warren Washington. Now, one game doesn't define a season, but this is what we all kind of talked about in the preseason, where the big question we had with UT was, hey, could Terry kind of maintain the intensity and effort on D that we saw last year, built by Chris Beard? So far this season, beyond just this game, we're seeing them devolve into a mediocre team, right? So they're like 39th overall in KenPom. And then especially on D, where they've dropped to number 54 in adjusted defensive efficiency. And then you compare that to their adjusted defensive efficiency ranking of 14th last year and 13th with Beard present. So again, there's still the rest of the season, but it's only going to get tougher for them. So I'm actually looking forward to the UT game, quite honestly. Now let's get to the game preview for the upcoming UH-TCU matchup. Tom, you want to kick off and tell us what you think?
I don't know a whole lot about TCU. Matter of fact, I haven't seen them play this year. I just know that Coach Jamie Dixon's he's an excellent coach. I hear it's going to be a sellout crowd. It's a road game. TCU's got a tough one tonight. They're at home against Oklahoma. Be a good chance for Coach Sampson and his staff to watch one game, to focus on a game here tonight. Look at TCU in person. Plan for this one. They'll give him coaching staff Thursday and Friday to prepare individually, specifically for this TCU game. So you guys probably know more about TCU than I do. Bill watched that game, but it's going to be another. What does Kellen call them? Street fights.
Yep.
Every road game's a street fight, rock fight. I expect us to come back and bounce back from the tough loss at Iowa State and to come out loaded for bear. Having said that, and we talked about Dunn earlier, for this team to really take off, we need some productive minutes from Dunn and from Ramon too, and even Malik Wilson. We just can't go. I just don't think we can go through this season relying on six guys.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Bill, what do you think?
Well, once again, TCU is going to be a lot different than what you just alluded to, because they play about 10 people. Nobody on the team plays more than 30 minutes. Of the top 10, they all play at least 10 or more. This is a deep team. It's a very, very new, and it's led to some interesting games so far. I know I've previously mentioned the impressive 1-point win at Georgetown when they really lost the game, but banked the 3 to end it after dribbling out of bounds. They're 0-1 in conference with the one loss, and I'm doing air quotes right now, being the loss to Kansas.
Yeah.
They're 11-3 overall. Interestingly, Jamie Dixon going into tonight has 498 career wins. So if he beats Oklahoma, he'll be going for number 500 against us. But they're in just a brutal stretch. I mean,
they are
at Kansas versus OU, and then they finalize that 3-game stretch by playing us. So we catch them, I think, at a reasonably good time. They lost to Clemson. They lost to Services. Their best player, and I mentioned him versus Kansas, is Emmanuel Miller, 6'7" forward. He was honorable mention all Big Ten. He's a 50% shooter. Their whole team are good shooters. He's a good rebounder. He's a 3-year starter for them. He's a good player. They've got another forward who's now coming off the bench, who's their second leading, Jacoby Coles. He's just a solid player. And then a third 6'7" player, a guard, Micah P., transfer from Tech. He's their third leading scorer, shoots over 50% from, again, they're not great 3-point shooters, but if they're left alone, they'll hit their shots. The 3 other starters, Avery Anderson, 6'3", transfer from Oklahoma State. He's their point guard. He's shooting 48%, leads them in assists. Travion Tennyson, who I mentioned, who had the 24 against Oklahoma, 6'4", 2 guard from A&M Corpus Christi. Really, really good shoot. And then their center is the transfer from Kansas, McDonald's All-American, Ernest Uda, and he is going to play. He's 6'9". He's a big guy. He is not going to step outside of the 3 feet from the basket. He rebounds. He scores inside exclusively, and so he's not going to be like Slazinski or some of the big guys we've played recently, move the ball. They're a high-scoring team. They've eclipsed 100 3 times this. They're a good shooting team, a good offensive team. The lowest scoring game they've had is 65 and it was a 14-point. Like I said, they've got a lot of new players. It's still been a little up and down for them. They're not a good inside team other than, Uda, but not much off the bench, and he's not really an offensive threat. But they're deep at guard, deep on the wing, and I think teams that have good guards typically struggle against our defense, struggle against Shed, struggle against Cryer, and I see about a 78-70.
Okay, no, that's good. I mean, looking at the advanced analytics, Houston is still number 1 in Ken Palm versus TCU at number 29. If you look at it from an adjusted offensive efficiency perspective, Houston's number 17th, while TCU is number 41 in adjusted defensive efficiency. On the flip side, we're number 1 in adjusted defensive efficiency, while TCU is number 40 in adjusted offensive efficiency. TCU is a better shooting team than us at number 38 in effective field goal percentage and an excellent offensive rebounding team, ranked number 20th in offensive rebound percentage. Plus, they try to score quick in transition with the tempo at number 37 in the country, and they're number 2 in quick points off steals and number 5 in quick points off offensive rebounds based on Haslam metrics, a trend we've seen with TCU these past 2 seasons in terms of speeding things up. From a style of play perspective, they also emphasize the 2-point play versus the 3, ranking number 12 in percentage of points from the 2-point range. Then you match that up with our number 1 effective field goal percentage D that defends every shot and our number 1 ranked defensive team in defending the 2-point play and block percentages. And I think our D actually matches up well with how TCU wants to play offense. On the other side of the ball, TCU is good at defending shooters, ranking number 83 in defensive effective field goal percentage, but really elite at forcing turnovers, being number 11th in KenPom, and steal percentage, ranking 5th. So another challenging day for our Cougs trying to protect the ball on offense. Based on the metrics, kind of like what you said, Bill, this should be an 8-point type of win. But being on the road, again, against a tough D that's just below our excellent threshold at number 41, I'm expecting something a little bit closer, like a 4-point win. But I think we're going to try to slow things down to prevent their ability for transition points as they like to do. So now let's go to the game preview for the upcoming Houston Tech matchup. Bill, why don't you kick things off and let us know what you think?
Okay. Tech right now, they're 13-2. The two losses, Villanova, they lost to Butler by 8 and over. I know you guys have mentioned Grant McCasland and that he's, good defensive coach. In that Butler loss, admittedly, it went into OT. They lost 103-95. They've been giving up points this year. They're not the same. McCasland's in his first year with Tech. He's got different players, and it's not quite playing out that way. Their best win, I think, clearly is the win at Texas that they just had. But here's where I think, Steve, you're going to be in trouble with our bet. And this is because Tech only plays 6 players, and I think they're going to wear down this season. They played 7 quite a bit, but they've got a forward who let them score a few times early in the season. Devin Cambridge blew out his knee versus the University of Omaha. He's done for the year. So they're really down to playing 6 players, and that's it. As you mentioned before, Pop Isaacs, he's their guy. He's 17 points a game. He's 6'2", 2 guard. Joe Toussaint, a 6-foot point guard. He's their second leading scorer at 14 and assists. They're the 2 best players. Warren Washington, you mentioned, Steve. I would say he's number 3, 7-footer.
Yeah.
But he's not he grabs about 8 boards and blocks a couple shots a game, but he's not a really physical presence, but he's a good player as well. And they play it's Washington and then it's 4 guard. It could be a good matchup for us. They do not turn the ball over. Their guards are all capable of scoring. They're 2-0 in the conference right now. The UT road win and then Oklahoma State, they annihilated it. All 4 of the guards, I think they all put up double-digit shots. One of them may have put up 9, but if they've got the shot, they'll take it. Once again, they're led by Isaacs, and with the exception of maybe Walton, if they're left open, they're going to hit things. It's Kerwin Walton. Look for Isaacs, Toussaint, I think, to be kind of contained much better than they have been in any of their previous games by Shed and Cryer. And I think, that's trendy thing to say right now is the head of the snake. Well, their guards, Isaacs for sure, and Toussaint would be the co-heads of this. And I think going up against Cryer and Shed, that's going to neutralize them. And I also think with them only playing 6 players, our defensive pressure is going to wear them down. And I think we end up winning by, 13-14, 77-6.
Okay. How about you, Tom, from a coach's perspective?
Yeah, Bill mentioned about, Grant McCasland coming from, North Texas. I just kind of figured Tech would be playing games in the 50s and low 60s. They've been scoring a lot of points, but they'd also been giving up a lot of points. It's probably going to take him a couple of years to get the roster that he wants. I always thought it took Coach Sampson his 3rd year to kind of get the roster that he wanted, player 1 through 13 to fit his culture. So, I'm kind of surprised at the amount of points they're scoring and the amount of points they're giving up. Bill alluded to that game against Butler where they gave up, Pop Isaacs. I know he's got some allegations against him, and I guess we'll just have to see what happens with that. But if they lose him, Bill said they're only playing 6 guys, so it's going to be tough for Tech. But as it is right now, you're innocent until proven guilty, and they're just allegations. So it kind of looks like they're going to let everything go through the courts, and they're going to go from there. But they're a good team. It's going to be another rock fight.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, if you look at advanced analytics, UH, as we've stated, we're number 1, and Ken Palm still. Tech is number 26, right? So they're right up there. If you look at it from an adjusted offensive efficiency perspective, we're number 17. And even though we're saying Tech is not as good defensively as North Texas State was, and that is a true statement, they are still ranked number 43rd in adjusted defensive efficiency. So that's just below our threshold of excellent. On the flip side, adjusted defensive efficiency, we're number 1. And then on the offensive side, Tech is number 29 in the country. Tech is an even better shooting team than TCU. at number 36 in effective field goal percentage, but are not that great of an offensive rebounding team at number 99 in the country. They're very similar to us in slowing things down on offense while playing tough D. From a style of play perspective, they also emphasize the three-point shot and free throws more than the two, ranking 278th in percentage of points from two-point range. Then you match that up against our number one effective field goal percentage D that defends every shot, and our number 3 defensive team in defending the three-point shot and block shots. I think our D is prepared to handle what Tech will throw at us on offense. On the other side, Tech is good at almost everything on D, but not great at anything, quite honestly. Nothing hitting our excellent threshold of top 40 in the country. They're number 83 in defensive effective field goal percentage. One area they don't focus too much on is stealing the ball, with a steal percentage rate ranked number 230th in KenPom this year. So the Cougs should have an easier time protecting the ball on offense against Tech. Based on the metrics, this should be around a 12-point win, similar to what you were espousing, Bill. Though playing at home, I believe Tech is now getting into form, playing a bit better than early on. So I'm expecting an 8-point win with another grinded out physical game like against Iowa State, but hopefully this time with the foul calls going a bit more our way this game. So now, why don't we take a look at other Big 12 games in the coming week that fans should pay attention to this week that are of interest. And Tom, why don't you go first? Any game that you're zeroing in on in particular?
Yeah, I was looking at OU at KU. The game's on Saturday. OU's tipping off right now at TCU. So if Oklahoma can win that game, they'd be 2-0 heading into Fog Allen. And I think that would be a great game. As you guys know, to beat Kansas at the Fog, you've got to be about 8 to 10 points better on that particular night. We know what happens at the Fog. So, but I'm looking at this. Kansas is down 63 to 57 to UCF with 40 seconds left, guys.
Awesome. That's awesome. Love it.
And you know what? I'll put it mildly, but I'm sick and tired of these KU fans on social media.
Yeah.
They just appear in everybody's feeds, and they talk about our cupcake schedule and all this. Well, you know what? You're about to get beat by UCF.
Hey, Tom, I actually take it the other way. I'm not offended at all because we're in KU fans' head right now. They are commenting on all of our feeds these days.
And right? It goes back to the Phi Slamma Jamma days. They were the most arrogant fans. I don't know what it was. I just remember Greg Dreiling shooting a turnaround jumper and Akeem just like shoving it down his throat. I'll never forget that game at Hawthines where we just obliterated Kansas. So I don't know. I can't stand Kansas fans. If there's any Kansas fans listening, I'm sure they're not, but 'cause they're too arrogant to listen to us anyway.
Hey, that's what makes great rivalries. I'm looking forward to our 2 games this season versus KU. Hey, how about you, Bill? What game are you zeroing in on?
Yeah, I was looking at Tech against Kansas State. One, because we've got Tech coming up, and I like to take a look at our coming opponents. And
awesome.
We haven't talked much about State. For Tech, there's not a whole lot to say that hasn't already been said. It's Pop Isaacs, it's Joe Toussaint, it's Warren Washington, 4-guard offense, and they've got no depth. I think against us, that's going to hurt them, and I think against Kansas State, it could hurt. Kansas State, just real quickly, they're 2-0 in conference, but the 2 wins are by 25 over UCF, which bodes even better for Kansas. And they beat West Virginia on the road. Their best player, he's led them in scoring 6 of the 15 games, is Tyler Perry, the 5'11 lead. He's led them in assists 11 times. So he's a really good player. Their leading scorer is a 6'3 2-guard, Cam Carter, and he's led them in scoring half a dozen times. Arthur Kaluma's led them in scoring a few times. He's a good player, 6'7 forward. And David Nagesson, 6'9 forward, leads them. They've lost their 3 games. They lost to Miami. They lost to Southern Cal. They lost at home to Nebraska. And their 2 best wins are Providence and Carter plays 36 minutes a game. Kaluma plays 35 minutes. Negresson plays 28. And they've got a couple others that play 21, and that's it. So it's 6 guys that play for them, and that has nothing to do with injuries. That's just, they've got 6 pretty good players and no bench. And, they lost 2 17-plus point per game scorers last year from last year's team that made a deep run, Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson. They just lacked the games at Tech. I think that Tech will hold on only because they're playing at home. And I see them winning 75-70.
Okay, very cool.
But it's going to be Perry and Carter versus Isaacs and Toussaint, which I think will be a really interesting and fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm picking the Baylor-Cincy game. Baylor started 2-0 with wins over Okie State in a close one, and BYU at home, while Cincy is 1-1 with wins at BYU and a last-second loss to Texas, unfortunately. But this should be a good game with strength versus strength. Baylor's the best three-point shooting team in the country at 45% from three-point range, but are not that great of an offensive rebounding team. And while it will be a challenge for Cincy's defenders on the perimeter, but on misses, Cincinnati is number 2 in KenPom for defensive rebound percentage. On the other side, Baylor has become only good on D since Jerome Tang left for KSU. But best attribute on that side is defending the three-point shot, where they're ranked 54th in defensive three-point percentage defense. Issue is Cincy focuses more on the two-point shot and getting quick points off offensive rebounds, ranking 10th in Haslam metrics. So this should be a fun one. Based on the metrics, this should be around an 8-point win for Baylor at home, but I also believe Cincy is now getting into form and playing better than early on. So yeah, I think it's going to be a real close one, maybe a 3-point win by Baylor. So that's it for this episode 11 of No Conference for Old Men podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. And again, would really appreciate it if folks would follow, subscribe, or collect our podcast, depending on your podcast platform of choice. We are also available on GoCoogs.com under the podcast section, or SoundCloud as well, if those that prefer to digest the content that way. We appreciate the continued support and loyalty from all, and we're going to keep trying to provide the type of deep college hoops insights for Cougar and Big 12 fans alike. Also, please give us a follow on our Twitter account, No Conference for Old Men. Thank you all again for listening, and episode number 12 should come out next Friday morning. So please be on the lookout to download and listen to the next episode. Thanks again, everyone.